like to call to order the April 2nd, 2019 Lake Mills City Council meeting. And we'll start with the roll call, please.
Mr. Fields?
Here.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Here.
Mr. Foster?
Here.
Mr. Fritsch?
Here.
Ms. Schmidt?
Here.
Mr. Buckholz?
Here.
Okay. Would like everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Takes us to item number 4, correction and/or approval of the City Council minutes of March 19th. Do I have a motion to approve?
I move the minutes of March 19th, 2019.
Okay, I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Are there any corrections or additions? Seeing none, would you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mr. Fritsch?
Aye.
Ms. Schmidt?
Aye.
Mr. Fields?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Taking us to item number 5, correspondence. Do I have anybody that would like to share correspondence?
I've had several emails, Sandy Beach, about the meeting that we had last week. Most of them have been asking several questions about it. One, it is definitely for the idea so far that's been presented. And then I've also received a couple of emails on the cars and coffee with concerns with the road construction and all the traffic it's going to push through the the alleyway down there.
Ooh.
And then with just people being able to get in and out of their houses.
Okay. I'm sure we'll have a discussion about that item on the meeting tonight. I got some calls, but most of my calls are about Mulberry Street because we live on Mulberry Street, and some of our residents had questions, and so that I took care of what I could on that, but it wasn't something for the whole council. Anybody else have correspondence that they want to share?
No, I think I got the same conversations that Steve got
Okay.
concerning the Sandy Beach. And, yeah,
We could bring those up if pertinent at the
Yep.
time of the item on the agenda. Okay.
I did as well.
All right. That takes us to questions and public comment. The public is encouraged to address the council at this time regarding items on the agenda. Public comment may also be made at this time on items that are not on the agenda if you have registered with the city clerk before the meeting has been called to order. The state's open meeting law discourages action by the council on items not listed on the agenda. Please keep your comments limited to 3 minutes and state your name and address when starting your comments and fill out the sign-in sheet provided on the podium. If anyone would like to speak at this time, please come up to the podium. Okay. It looks sort of like everybody who's here is here for a certain item on the agenda that they will be speaking to at that time. Okay. Seeing no one at the podium, we'll move on to item number 7, City Manager's Report. Steve?
And the electronic agenda, there is the treasurer's cash report for February, the general fund check and the utility check registers. A letter, a correspondence letter, a building assessment report, and the Jefferson County study on radios. And Steve probably knows more about this, but there's a meeting coming up, and Todd will be there representing the city as far as the ability to have radio communications. I'm sure Mick is probably pretty interested in it too. We're still looking at budget software. It's getting to that point in time where we either have to make a decision or not. WPPI is kind of slow on it. A lot of people haven't been able to make a decision on it, and we depend on a larger group if we go that route. The K-9 is still moving forward. There's still a lot of funds coming in, and so we're headed in that direction yet. There's still more money coming in, and there's an MOU that we have to finalize with WPPA, so that'll still be coming through. South Main Street, we've been having our regular weekly meetings and dealing with a lot of water sewer issues. But the one thing that I heard out of the meeting today is that they thought they would be out of that intersection in 3 to 4 weeks with the pavement done. So we have our pre-pavement meeting next week. So if things,
Provided weather is
provided the weather's agreeable, we're moving
Keep
along
your
pretty well.
prayers coming, everybody. I know there's a separation of church and state, but there are times, so.
We've had several change orders. I'm trying to keep track of them, but we found some unexpected old storm sewer. I shouldn't say unexpected. We kind of knew it was there, but what it did and where it went was something new. And you don't want to leave that unfilled under the roadways. So some of it we had removed, some of it we're going to have slurried. So we'll get a price on that. There's some extra water and sewer curb stops, but those are for a private interest and they'll pay for that. There was an upgrade in the water main material and the curb stop material. There are a couple other ones that are still coming through that we'll have to look at. One we talked about today was last week we removed a street light on West Lake Street, and it was in pretty bad condition, and so we asked them to add one of the decorative ones, but those are like on a 4-month order, so they're going to see what they can do, but they're not going to guarantee us anything.
Wow. Is that unusual aging? Or is that normal?
For the
The age of that light pole? A little unusual.
No, it's not unusual. Its condition was bad and we knew it. That's why we went with new lights on the construction. The fact that it needed to be moved at this point in time was a bit of a surprise. There was some additional, anytime you dig in the ground, you find things you didn't realize were there, and so it required a little bit more work. And so we got into that pole, and so they asked us to move it, and when we did, we were like, well, we're not going to put that one back up, so.
Gotcha.
We haven't had any meetings for Mulberry Street other than the pre-con, which was last week, but we will be starting meetings next week. They have been out setting up all their traffic control. I don't know that they've actually done any construction, but,
The road itself, you mean?
yep,
It's mostly been related things.
right, Verizon is out there working, and
Gas companies almost done.
WE is out there working. So those are the main contractors out there. I think other than some surveying, some fencing, and some
trees have
road
been
construction.
taken down.
Yeah, that's pretty much what's gone on so far. Next week, it'll really start to ramp up. And we got the email about the rerouting of the crossing on Mulberry Street and those types of things, so. Yeah, so you covered pretty much everything there. American Way, we're into the contract and insurance. We haven't had the pre-con yet, but it's moving along pretty well. We'll probably be ready. We've got all our paperwork from the special assessment. We got the waivers, and we have the CSM and the easement out. It hasn't come back yet, but we've been assured that those will come in, especially after we have the special assessment paperwork. I don't know if you noticed, but we replaced the chillers already on the municipal building here. And they're out back inside the fenced block area. They're about a third the size of the original ones. So 20 years, that's how much change has occurred. We ended up with a change order on that one. We had to replace all the fluid in the system because it wasn't up to par for the new systems and the new chillers. We're still looking to get that weather vane out at the mill pond. We did get our permit for the Wetlands Park ditch cleaning, so you'll notice that someone put in an erosion control mat driveway there on the south side of County Highway V.
Okay, good. So we can avoid flooding over there if things go well.
The lead service lateral reporting that we have to do to the DNR, we just submitted our February report, and we're about, if you go by our numbers, we're about 95% done. So we're in pretty good shape there. We have finished our preliminary radium report. We submitted it with a, what do you think, to the DNR. They haven't responded, so because we're on such a tight timeline on that one, we're going to actually submit the official report to see if they will respond. Because right now they're eating into our time on the back end by us waiting and then not responding. AMI is continuing to move along 100 meters in the last month. Water meters. Corrosion control, that testing is still ongoing. The water tower painting is moving along. In fact, I think they'll start a lot earlier than they originally anticipated.
Because of the weather.
Because of the weather. And,
By the way, how many water meters have we already installed now in the new program?
well, the electric are about up to 600-700,
Oh,
and the water is about 550-600.
that's a good number. Somebody's been busy.
Riverwood, where the developers agreement we had with them also served as a special assessment waiver. That was part of that agreement. And so we're continuing to move along. The only thing that we really need yet is the final approval from the developer on the bids. But from everything I've heard, they're pretty pleased with them. I sent you an email from Rock Lake Activity Center. You got an update on the report from them as far as the roof. They're done with the roof now. They submitted their invoice for reimbursement. Dog and Shrub and the winery are continuing to work with A1 on getting fill for their sites. St. Paul's had their grand opening Sunday, which I totally forgot about, but Betsy made it. Greenwoods is continuing to move along. They have some questions on some of the final site stuff that we have to resolve, mainly the bike trail and some of the sidewalks, but that's pretty minor. McDonald's is finalized. We got all the data. It was analyzed by a transportation engineer at Strand, submitted to the county highway department. They reviewed it and agreed with Strand, and so we've signed off on that permit.
When will it start?
They've had their permit in, the state's approved it, and our building inspector signed off on it last Thursday. So I'm anticipating as soon as possible. Other than that, that's all I have. Are there any questions?
Was the developer having to agree to the bids? Was that something negotiated into the developer's agreement?
Yeah, he didn't want to have a bid that was like $70,000 per lot. That would make those lots unsellable, and then he'd have a special assessment that he'd have to pay without being able to sell the lots. So we agreed that, and that's why it was listed as an alternate when we did the approvals, so that if they did reject it, we could cut it out of the bid. But they came in, actually under our original estimate, We told them between 30 and 35. It came in at about 29. But that, we still don't have all the final engineering, gas, electric, and so it's probably going to be up around 38. But that's still a pretty good price for a lot right now.
Did we
We
already,
definitely have builders who are interested in buying those lots.
I don't recall, did we already accept and approve the bids?
We accepted and approved them, but it was a conditional on that one bid.
Oh, so if Riverwood for some reason said no, we could get out of the contract? Okay.
Can you repeat the Sunday grand opening information?
Last Sunday, the 31st, St. Paul's had their groundbreaking, I should say,
Okay.
for their expansion. They're adding on to the church.
Right.
In fact, I think they're building the sanctuary and some 4K area, if I remember correctly.
I thought you meant there was one this Sunday.
No, it was
I'm
last
sorry.
Sunday.
That's why I asked. I thought I don't know which one that is. Okay. All right, well, that helps clarify that question. And, well, thank you. Anybody have questions for Steve before we move off of this item? Seeing none? Okay, acceptance of minutes of the Parks Board, February 20th, 2019, and the Housing Authority for February 26th, 2019. These minutes will be placed on file. Item 9, council business. We do have a board appointment, or council appointment for the Board of Review. I'd like to appoint Dana Ostrowski for the Board of Review, and if there's someone who would make a motion to that effect, I would appreciate that.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, and we appreciate that Dana volunteered to do that. And would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mr. Fritsch?
Aye.
Ms. Schmidt?
Aye.
Mr. Fields?
Aye.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Okay. So, we do have upcoming openings on the Planning Commission, and we do have a current opening on the Public Works Board. Anyone listening is here tonight that's interested, you can apply right online. Just do it right on the computer, send it over to us, and we will take a look at those persons who have volunteered to do that. So if you know someone who would be very good on those boards, would you please share that information with them and give them a little push. Sometimes people need a little encouragement. Okay, miscellaneous licenses. Would you read those, please?
Tavern operator's license application from Matthew Beckman, Andrea Ferreira, Patricia Hesse, and Madeline Newens.
Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Fritsch?
Aye.
Ms. Schmidt?
Aye.
Mr. Fields?
Aye.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Okay. Moves us on to item C, the presentation on Sandy Beach Recreational Boat Launch Design for the grant. Who will be our speaker on this tonight?
Brandon Herbert with Strand has got a presentation to start with.
Okay, so Brandon will go to the podium, and while he's setting up, it looks like you're pretty well set to go there.
I think so, yeah.
Okay, I do also want to thank anyone who's in the audience who's come for this item, and appreciate you giving your time, and maybe your ideas. We'll see where things go, okay?
Yeah. So before I dive in here, I just want to say that thank you, everybody, for coming. I see many of the same faces that we had at the public information meeting a couple weeks ago. And I think that everybody here is gathered because the city, the county, the town has this incredible resource of Rock Lake that everybody wants to protect and maintain what they view as their enjoyment of that resource. And I think what we're all here for is just to try and find a balance of what everybody's definition of enjoying that resource is, and make sure that what we end up with is what something that everybody can feel good and that they are still enjoying that precious resource in a way that is satisfactory. Before I go any farther, I just want everybody to keep that in mind, that there are diverse interests in the community. Some people come just for the day, some people live across the street, some people just want to get their boat out on the water. Those are all valid viewpoints that we need to try and balance, and that's what we're trying to do with this project. And so I guess let's just try and keep that in mind, I guess, that this project is trying to balance very diverse interests in this area. So.
Can I clarify something, and you correct me if I'm wrong?
Sure.
Purpose of this tonight is for us to decide what we want to use if we decide to go ahead with the grant request?
No.
No.
This is to give us an idea of what your preference is when we go to the next public hearing, which will be on the 10th.
Okay,
Because then
so
we have
this-
to come back to the council on the 16th, and you have to make your final changes so that he can get his permits into the DNR if we continue to go forward.
Okay, all right, thank you. I'm good, I'm glad I clarified that, thank you.
Yeah. So before I talk about what we might do, I feel like it's always important to discuss real briefly. I know everybody here is probably very familiar with this, but what you would have exactly at Sandy Beach. Again, incredible resource, this park in the mobile home community nearby, Rotary Park, the whole area. There's just so many things to offer to the community when they come to this area, and we want to try and maintain all these various uses with the plan going forward. A brief list of the issues that Sandy Beach has that kind of spurred the master plan that led to the desire to even change the boat launch. Number one, or the original one, was that the utilities in the mobile home community are in need of replacement. And when you started taking a look into that, it started to become kind of expensive, and then do you want to put them back exactly how they are? Is there anything different or better that we could do there? And then that kind of expanded to the existing parking lots also in bad shape. It's deteriorating from just the age of the asphalt and the lack of stormwater drainage. The existing restaurant needs to be replaced, and when I say needs to be replaced, some people might have a different opinion, but the building itself is to a point where there's code violations. It's kind of reached its useful life. And many people have said that having a restaurant there is a kind of integral part of the Sandy Beach experience. And so from that perspective, it needs to be replaced. Additional parking stalls are desired for busy summer weekends. I've heard from numerous sources that the parking lot can fill up and people end up parking down Sandy Beach Road and parking wherever they can. And so there's some desire to add additional parking to Sandy Beach. And then the existing boat launch bisects the beach and poses a safety concern because it's right in the area where it's pretty close to people swimming, and it's in the path between where the beach and the restroom for beachgoers is. So those were kind of the main reasons to even start looking at this area in general. So back in 2017, the city commissioned a report, I guess we could call it, led by Mead and Hunt, the city's consulting planner. That resulted in a 93-page report that analyzed the highest and best use for Sandy Beach Park spaces to serve a diverse user group and stakeholders. That report incorporated a financial analysis of many different potential revenue sources to support initial investment that would maintain the high-quality community resource for future generations, which I think is important for everybody in the room here. I've heard that expressed many times. And also to address the city's ongoing maintenance efforts and expenses on the park. And that report was presented to City Council on January 16th, 2018. So the proposed conceptual improvements that were included in that report are shown here. It included many, many things, kind of a renovation of the mobile home community, larger parking lot, and the boat launch that we're here to talk about today, moving the boat launch. So here's another perspective of those improvements, kind of, you can see the boat launch on the right. And the boat launch area was determined to be Section 1A, or I guess you could call it Phase 1A of this redevelopment project, because moving that boat launch out from the center of the park to the west side would clear the way for some of the other major renovation concepts. Again, here's another more zoomed-in view of what came out of this report, and I'm kind of hitting a number of times on what came out of the report because this concept was the basis of our initial concept one that was on the agenda today. And we tried to stick as close as we could to that concept because of how it interacted with all the other future phases and concepts that that report, kind of outlined to include in the park. The original basis for design, I apologize for a lot of words on the slide here, but I think it's important to kind of see where we were coming from for informed decision-making. We were going to use the States Organizations for Boating Access SOBA design handbook for the boat launch. I guess that's kind of why some of the parking stall lengths and widths and turning radiuses and all the things on there, that's where that comes from, is where Strand isn't just making this up on what we feel like is best. That's a very well-respected organization on boating access. We want to keep boating and boat launching activities separate from beach patrons. That was for a safety aspect and also just to kind of keep that beach goer space cohesive and as large as possible. Maintain the existing number of vehicle and trailer stalls. The city staff have reported that oftentimes what we have now, which is 15, is not enough. But at the same time, we can't go bigger than that, and we've heard numerous times that we may not want to go bigger than that because it might encourage more boat traffic on the lake, and then also from a natural resources code that dictates how many stalls can be put on a lake of this size. 15 would be the maximum that we could put back on this site. But then the DNR also did say that they would allow us to put one more handicap access stall, so for a total of 16. We want to minimize the impacts to the car parking lot to be consistent with the master concept layout. That was the original basis. Increase the boat launching throughput rate by adding an additional slip. Again, people have often reported that there's quite a queue, and having 2 slips instead of 1 would help. To keep as many existing trees as possible, to provide aquatic invasive species control devices, to also plan for future stormwater treatment devices in other stages. We want to plan for those in stage 1, but for the future work. And ideally keep the city's Sunny Pier terminating at the same shore location, which kind of dictates some of the boat launching location. So the proposed boat launch reconstruction option 1, this was the option that was presented at the public involvement meeting on March 14th. I have on the left there, that's the concept that we created. And I have it next to what was in the report to just show how we were trying to keep that, more fleshed out design as consistent with that original concept as possible, with 2 entrance, one entrance and 1 exit only connection to Sandy Beach Road, trying to keep the impacts on the existing parking lot kind of in this area to a minimum. Again, provide those 16 stalls, provide the long-term boat trailer parking stalls here, which were in the original concept. There was a bait shop. We've since nixed the fuel concept, preserved some of the green space over here. So I think, in my opinion, this concept stayed pretty consistent with what was in the Mead and Hunt report. And so that is what we presented to the public a couple of weeks ago. I guess here's just a little bit bigger view of the area, showing you some of the interactions with the rest of the park. This was a proposed reconfiguration of the city's Sunny Pier, where they have the rented boat lifts. This is the new Pie Pier, shown in black here, just to give you kind of some scale of how this would all line up. Some of the general concepts where we had vehicles coming in this way, they would circulate this way, kind of turn and then back up to the launch, and then when they would pull out, they would come park here, and then when they wanted to leave to get their boat, they would kind of circle around here and go get it. And then once you pulled your boat out, you would exit this way. That was going to be the encouraged flow direction. We also had some invasive species control devices shown here and here. It's encouraged that you have one have the availability at least for boats coming into the launch to wash before they launch in the lake as well as when they leave. So that's why we had two shown. And so we presented this I should also say this keeps all the trees. This concept preserved every tree on the site. There's a couple that have been cut down recently by the Parks Department because they were ash trees, and then there's one also on ash tree that will be cut down soon. So everything that could stay, I would guess, was proposed to stay. I think that hits on some of the major concepts here.
Some shoreline plantings there?
Yep, yeah, so we have these hatched areas are shoreline plantings. And so those were shown because there's quite an expanse of shoreline here that has no natural plantings down to the water's edge, and it's generally encouraged to have some sort of native vegetation as much as you can down to the water's edge for erosion and habitat and all kinds of reasons. So why we were showing it where we were is that this section here would separate beachgoers from the boat launch. It would be kind of like a natural barrier where they couldn't just walk down the beach. And then this one over here, we have a stormwater outlet shown that would be a smaller pipe, and it would be like clean stormwater. It would be water that would only have come first through this bioretention basin and filtered through soil and plant roots and rocks and everything, and it would come out clean, and in some smaller storms that you might not even see any flow there. It's not just coming straight from the parking lot. I think that's really important to note. And then that again would be planned right here for a future connection to other stormwater treatment devices out here in the future. But these plantings would kind of hide that outlet, and then I guess just provide some additional habitat and shoreline protection here. But the extent of these planting zones is, I mean, that's very conceptual at this point. Theoretically, you can get rid of them, you can move them, you could shrink them. Those are, I guess, just pointing out what that is at this point.
Are you thinking of bushes or grass or combination or?
Well, I think it'd probably be a combination of all of it. UW Extension has a nice shoreline plantings guide that has recommended species lists of everything you just listed, from flowers, grasses, or shrubs, trees. So that would be, depending on the extent that council or the city would like to have shoreline plantings, that would probably be the next conversation is, well, what kind and how tall do you know?
And whether you're interested in stopping people from
Right,
moseying along the beach
right,
into the launch area.
right. And then we also were showing some reconstruction of Sandy Beach Road with this concept, so that we would widen the north half of the road to match the width of Sandy Beach Road down here. We were only showing construction to the center line because of a I guess, municipal division there. But that has since changed for option 2, I guess, if that's the direction this council would like to go.
That expansion stops, it doesn't go all the way down to the end of Sandy Beach Road, right?
Correct, yeah, so the full width, if you want to call it, would go through this part, and then this curb here would go back and match the narrower version of Sandy Beach Road right there. We also had a town ordinance sign that's currently on the side of the bait shop snack building here, kind of shown to be right here by the launch. And then also the bottoms of these bioretention basins could be many things, but what is shown here, and you can see it better on the actual printout, is like a natural prairie mix that ends up being coneflowers and black-eyed Susans and daisies and grasses and things like that. So it's not just a low green grass. It would be more of intended to be more of a flower garden type thing.
And it won't be a mowed area.
No, well, not intended to be.
Right.
So, I guess I think that covers most of this version. Is there any more questions before I move
Yeah.
on?
Is in the retention basin, the grass area, enough to filter out all the surface oil and gas from the parking area so it doesn't get into the lake?
Yes, that we would follow DNR technical standards on this type of device. You know, they have certain soil stratas are supposed to be certain thicknesses, and the size of rock is supposed to be certain size, all designed to catch the pollutants. And they've done testing to come to those technical standards, so I would say yes. All right. Oh, I guess I forgot I had this slide. So 16 slips, 2 launching slips, 2-way circulation, drilling planter, bioretention. We covered all that. Here's some more zoomed in versions. The version of the AI aquatic invasive species control device would be, I guess, one of the more simple versions. I've learned through this project a lot of variation in these devices that, as you can imagine, ranges from quite inexpensive, like this one would be, say, $1,000, versus there's some ones that have all kinds of bells and whistles, pressure washers, some that have vacuums associated with them. They can be Bluetooth connected, so you can tell how many times people use them. Vacuums. There's a wide range of, you could be hot water pressure wash, cold water pressure wash. So we're currently showing, I guess, the less expensive one, and there is some reason behind that. I met with Tim Campbell. He's a UW Extension aquatic invasive species control expert, and also Patricia a number of times. And there's some studies on percent removal of a simple device like this compared to some of the more advanced devices. And the more advanced devices definitely remove more, but you're talking somewhere in like this device would remove somewhere in the, say, 60 to 65% range. There's so many invasive species that percentage changes wildly depending on what they are, but some of the more advanced ones might remove, say, 80 or 85. So it's, how much do you want to pay to remove a third more kind of thing. So currently we're at this, but there is an option depending on how, I guess, complicated or advanced people want this device to be to upgrade to something much more significant there.
Isn't it also dependent on the person who's doing it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that would be the boat owner?
Yes.
And right now, I don't think we have a plan to have a staff member there. And, maybe we'll have to look at that down the road because, it's our lake and we may, some people don't care.
Yeah.
They'll go poof, 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 and they're done. And they haven't removed what they need to remove. But that's a big factor, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. How much you care, how much detail you pay attention to. I mean, that's what this sign is supposed to help with, is to remind people, hey, don't forget to look here and don't forget to look there, and make sure you drain this and scrub this. That's what all the text on this sign is, so that it reminds people to try and be a little bit more.
We've
diligent.
participated in the Clean Boat, Clean Water program now for 4 or 5 years. And so there has been someone down there, but they usually aren't very aggressive. They try and help suggest, and they try and help people understand what the problems are. But if people don't care, they haven't historically said you're going to clean your boat.
Well, it's something we may want to discuss down the road, but not tonight.
Well, you'll need a police officer there then. Right, Patricia?
If I may interject, the town of Lake Mill has offered people to go and do the inspections, go through the training of boats being put in and taken out. So you might want to connect with them.
We-
Wes Dawson already contacted me.
We have,
Okay.
and we do. We've been participating in that program now for 5 years. And so we've actually had people at the boat launch doing that.
About having a schedule and in there for 10, 12 hours a day.
Oh, wow.
And that's what we've been doing. We've been part of that grant for a long time now.
But just having a person there is what I'm hearing is, some people don't want to hear about it. They want the freedom to do what they want to do with their boat and the heck with us. So it's an issue.
Yep. I think that the DNR and the Clean Boats, Clean Waters program has taken the position that you encourage them as much as you can, but you're not going to make them do it.
Unfortunately. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and Doug, I guess I forgot I had this.
Patricia had a comment.
Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say, it's the law to clean your boat, so, one of the things that we could talk about, and I'm happy to come back and talk to the council about the Clean Boats, Clean Waters program, but, you can't drive your boat and trailer on public roads with plants or animals on them, or inline wells, so you could get a ticket. And so something that the city could do is, I could work with them on training their officers, to, if they do normal stops of, people on the roads, they can check those things also.
Is that a local enforcement or is that a DNR enforcement?
That is any law enforcement, can enforce that law.
We've done it. We've made some traffic stops for that.
But something, again, down the road a little bit, it's not really a pertinent part of this discussion, but it is something to not be lost in the shuffle. So you can go on.
And then Doug, I forgot I had this slide, but here's an example of what the shoreline plantings could look like. You have some plants in the water, various heights, this might be more of a bush, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just made me think about public barriers too.
Yeah, 'cause we don't want people going into the lake where we're dispensing boats. That's why we're moving them, so.
There you go.
All right, so, as I mentioned, we presented that option one at the public information meeting a couple weeks ago. And again, apologize for a lot of text, but there was a lot of comments, and they're all important to note. So I tried my best to summarize everybody's comments, and I might have missed some, tried to capture general, concepts that people were saying. I might be using different terminology, so please forgive me, I did my best. But boat launch design is too tight, and that there's not enough room for maneuvering or queuing in front of the launch ramp, or just for queuing up in the driving aisles. We are paving too much of the existing grass space south of the beach. That's kind of where there's some picnic tables and grills right now. Boat launch parking area occupies prime waterfront space, meaning you should move the parking, well away from the water. Obviously you have to drive up to the launch somehow and have some room there to turn, but the thought that the parking should be, quite a ways farther away from the water. Encouraging boat launch traffic to exit at the western end of the launch. We had that one-way exit there. Will increase traffic in front of my home and or down Sandy Beach Road. Creating a boat launch in this space will negatively impact the view of the lake for the town residents on the south side of Sandy Beach Road. Not enough beach space remains for park patrons to park their boats on. We had those shoreline plantings that were taking up what now is just beach, and I guess oftentimes people park their boats on for some period of time. What will happen to the popular volleyball leagues? At that time, the city staff was kind of figuring out where we wanted to put the volleyball courts. The boat launch should be eliminated entirely. There's too many boats on Rock Lake. Again, some of these were not expressed at the public info meeting, but we received numerous emails over the last month or so. The new boat launch location will negatively impact fish habitat and aquatic vegetation in the area of the new launch. And then I separated them here a little bit because there was some that supported the idea that it was the existing boat launch can be dangerous, and there's been a number of close calls at the existing one with pedestrians. And then another that we received via email that moving the boat launch makes logical sense to enable future redevelopment and eliminate the driveway across the pedestrian spaces, meaning where people are trying to pull their boats and trailers across right by the beach. So based on those comments and feedback we had at the meeting, we redesigned the launch fairly significantly. I mean, generally the same with the same launching location. But some of the major changes here, let's see. What I have here, this is option 2 that was on the original agenda and posted online. Some of the major changes you can see are we eliminated all the stalls up here. We created dedicated queuing lanes, both for entering the launch and then as you come out for tie down and cleaning and making sure everything's tidied down in your boat there. We took the stalls that were here and pushed them out over here, which impacts this existing parking lot quite a bit more, which is less consistent with the overall concept for Sandy Beach Park than what the other one was. We eliminated this exit here entirely, so the traffic flow would come in, and this was two-way on option 2. And I guess I'm just going to go to the next one because this is generally the same. This is option 2A, I'm calling it, and what was distributed to you physically tonight, and for everybody in the audience, that's what you're holding. That was some slight modifications to option 2 based off a meeting with city staff and Patricia last Friday. The only differences between option 2 and option 2A were that we shortened the parking stalls for vehicles and trailers by 5 feet, which allowed this curb line and sidewalk to get pushed over 3 to 4 feet, more green space up by the beach there. We decided to put the volleyball courts over here, so you would still have 4 volleyball courts.
Temporarily.
Temporarily. Yeah, until future phases of Sandy Beach Park are built.
Where would it move after it gets it's up on the northern part farther, right? Along the,
Yes, it moves further north, closer to the beach. All the pavements shift south and the green areas move north.
okay. That's what I thought.
The city also, we had positioned a parking lot island to preserve a bur oak tree that's there right now. And after some discussion on a lot of the limbs are quite low hanging and they would have had to get trimmed anyways. You would have lost quite a bit of the canopy. A lot of construction traffic would have happened on top of the roots of it. And oaks typically do not do well with that. And you can do your best to try and keep people off of it, but oftentimes they die later anyways. And so Rob Getz, city forester, said, yeah, it's probably going to be tough to save that tree. And so we moved this parking lot island to not save the tree, centered it in the line of stalls more, and then we're showing some additional trees, 2 trees in each of these parking lot islands. I think those are some of really the only differences between options 2 and 2A were just some slight dimensional changes and parking lot layout changes with that island and things like that. We also, I should note it, we also moved this planting to about half the width, again, because of the comments on needing more space to beach boats. And then for just people's frame of reference and based on some questions we had at the public information meeting, we're showing dimensions between existing docks and the future boat launch docks, just to kind of give people some distances. There is a scale bar on this drawing, but I know most people don't have an engineering scale. It's just nice to have the dimensions right on there. I've also included in this drawing some numbers in the top right that show how many standard car stalls we're going to be removing with this plan, which would be 92. But when we took where the existing vehicle and boat trailer parking is, and if you were to restripe that as shown, you would add 107, so your net would be 15 new parking stalls in the short term. So that would be hypothetically, if this all moves forward 2020, you would add 15 after all this is said and done. Again, we're keeping the existing trailer parking stalls essentially the same, but adding the one handicap access stall. And then there's a couple of items there about, we are adding about a half an acre, 23,000 square feet of impervious area. And I know that that's a concern that we've heard, is that we're adding paved area by the lake. So I just wanted to kind of quantify that for people. But I also think it's important to note that we are only removing 5,000 square feet of what is currently grass. Much of the new impervious area would be where the volleyball courts are. So some of the grass that's removed, say in this area here, is very usable, picnic, kind of hang out by the lake type grass. That 5,000 square feet includes, say, areas down here that are parking lot, but will become vegetated. So we're removing 5,000 square feet of grass, but the, I guess, usable grass space would be more. We would remove more usable grass space in that 5,000 square foot number. It's just a little bit difficult to say, well, in whose opinion is it usable, or what's the higher and better uses? Is having a stormwater detention and treatment basin here, better in the overall for everybody than, say, a little bit more green space up here by the water. So I didn't want to kind of get into the weeds with trying to determine, what the good green space was left. But I just think that that's important to note, that the net grass space is that's only about 1/10 of an acre that you're losing. So those were comments that we'd heard, is how much new impervious area are you introducing? So I wanted to try and qualify that, yeah.
Yeah, I in later versions of this, as you tweak things, that, in that box up in the corner that you were just referencing, I would like to see the standard stalls added, changed, because the way it states now, it sounds like we're adding 107 stalls.
Sure, yeah, that's a good point.
Maybe you could say total
Yeah,
after standard stalls are added,
yep,
because it's misleading,
you're correct, absolutely,
Just say net new.
yeah.
or something, just make it more accurate.
And that's in the interim. I mean,
It's a what?
if you go through, that's in the interim. It's like the same volleyball courts.
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
If at the end, you
Yeah,
probably won't have a net added at all.
And that may be true. But if it's going to be there, I'd prefer to have it accurate.
Yeah. This is, just a slightly more zoomed in view to try and see a couple more of the smaller features. So we would propose to remove the existing fence line here and then along Sandy Beach Road, and add a fence line north of all the boat launch area here. And then exactly where it would terminate over here is yet to be determined, but that would separate the boat launching area from the beach. Theoretically, you could leave this fence, but then you would have a big gap here, and people could just come in here and go to the beach. And so we're trying to kind of recreate that barrier to keep people going through where they're supposed to be paying to go to the beach. So that was the intent there. I think it has another benefit, that some of the people across the street have wanted to preserve their view, and I would too if I lived there, that that fence would then go away. So you wouldn't be looking at a fence across the street.
So that would,
You'd have a boat launch, but
that would improve the view from the houses across the street.
Well, it depends on your opinion, I guess, but, you wouldn't be
Well-
looking at a 6-foot chain link fence anymore right across the street.
Right, which I don't know about anybody else, but, if you don't need it. Now, what's going to keep people from, is it is it going to be that berm stuff that's going to keep people from driving out there if there's no fence?
Oh, well, yeah, these would be like holes, basically. You'd go down a couple of feet.
So,
They're detention basins. You don't
yeah, I'm
you
just
don't want to
saying.
go in them.
We don't want people saying, oh, I don't want to wait in this line, I'm going to cut out here and take off, and
Yeah, definitely
that
not with your
wouldn't be
boat.
real advantageous for their equipment, right?
Right.
Yeah, no, no.
Or ours.
You wouldn't get through there with a boat on your back end. If you
Well,
had a
that-
nice four-wheeler, you might.
Then we really don't need a fence, because it's already a barrier.
Yeah, we put a fence on the north end, though, to control access across. So, there were some comments about being able to control people moving back and forth through that area and dogs and things along that line. And also, in the interim, we still need to force people to the entrance point.
Right, we need them to go in the entrance.
So having the fence along that one edge kind of controls all those.
You're talking about the one going this way across.
Brandon, it runs right along that,
That's the one you're talking about.
well, and then it runs along all the way along that, out to
Oh.
the, right there.
Okay,
And,
gotcha.
and so here, Diane, just to keep people from just walking the beach and coming in, again, we thought these plantings would be useful, that you could terminate the fence somewhere where it matches up with, some expansive plantings that people wouldn't want to walk through, or some people might, but,
Well, if somebody wants to get in, they're going to get in.
right.
Even if they go over the fence. I mean, people do that, but,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, it's human nature,
Another major thing I haven't mentioned yet is we eliminated the long-term boat trailer parking in the boat launch area altogether. That was right here, so in terms of,
That's good.
people's view, there wouldn't be permanent things parked there.
Where did that go over?
Well, in
It's
the,
original.
yeah, in the meantime, it would be right here still, where it is right now.
Oh,
In the long term, with the whole concept, we'd have to figure out a new area for it, I guess. but-
right, okay. So that's still in flux.
Right. And then also worth noting is we would propose some changes up by the existing launch where we would remove some of the asphalt here. And again, this is part of that net grass number, that we would remove the asphalt and just reseed these areas to create more of a path network. So if you're at the beach, you would walk this path to go to the restroom here. And we would leave, as of right now, the plan would be to leave the existing launch that could be used for non-motorized watercraft launching. There's been some discussion that you could use those existing docks as a transient boating for somebody who might want to come to the restaurant, but then at the same time, others have said, well, then we're encouraging boats to come near the swimming area again, and so there'd be some discussion on exactly what would happen there, but.
Does
So
that have
in
to
the
be?
In the long run, we're gonna remove the old bait shop.
Right.
So that's more green space that would go in there. And that area needs some work. That's one of the toughest areas in the beach.
Well, that's where I've got my concern is in the original proposal by Mead and Hunt, they had the avenue going down to the sandbar, and right now, as you come over the slight rise on Sandy Beach Road and you're looking down, you're missing what people are coming for, which is seeing the lake. And that avenue, as a photographer, I look for little scenes like that attract your eye and take your point of view down and says, this is an invitation. Here's the beach, and also you got the sandbar, so people know where that is. And I think if we lose that, it could be, with some work, it could become kind of an iconic brand photograph that people, oh, this is Lake Mills.
Yeah, and I think that was the intent with that, is
Yeah.
exactly like you're describing.
So
I wouldn't say that this,
don't want to lose that.
yeah, I wouldn't say this concept negates being able to do that. It would, if you had something come in here, it would just change what you did with this sliver there. If you had that avenue come in here still, instead of having a much larger parking area over here, maybe you'd have just a smaller normal car parking stall, or maybe that's where these boats go, is over here, kind of keep them closer to all the rest of the boating activity. I think there's still a lot of potential to have that concept.
I need a little clarification. What we're looking at right now, and with the grant and everything, can you show with your little marker what part of this is what's really going to be affected? I mean, like you just told Doug that the little circle thing can still be here,
Yeah.
can still do that. What is, when we get done, if we do what we were talking about doing, how much of this is really affected in this stage?
So it would be, we would saw cut the asphalt here, so anything this way would stay, and anything this way would stay. So you go like this way, and then here's your fence line, so anything north of the fence would stay the same. So you follow the fence over, and then obviously the boat launch would make some modifications. This area right in here would generally stay the same, so you'd just be putting in a curb line, kind of trying to match what's there. And then the existing road edge here would stay, so you'd just be grading these basins down from the road edge. That would be the same all the way through here. We'd have to get rid of this entrance. But I would say generally, I'm just going to do a quick circle. You'd be talking like this area here.
Okay, so it's really a relatively small area compared to the whole park.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, I don't think that's been real clear up till now.
Yeah, I guess maybe, oops. Oh, no, that is probably the best one. Most zoomed out, I guess.
Yeah. And we are doing this in stages, like over 5 years, sort of, right?
Well, that's what we hope to do.
Yeah,
Or
that's
what
we're
we
looking-
propose to do, I should say. You know, when Doug came in and asked me the question, well, we're going to do this right, it's, well, you know, this is the phase we're doing now, and depending on what kind of financing or grants or what council's in place, all dictates what happens next. But in order to be able to do any of the rest of it, this part has to be done first.
Okay,
One question, would the boat launch be part of this or not?
Yes, this part?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, yep.
And the pier to the right,
This?
would that be,
That's an existing,
Oh,
it's
that's
just going to be
the-
reshifted from next to the existing pier over to this pier.
okay, all right.
Yeah, we took the existing dimensions of what the city has there, and right now it goes out this distance and then just over a long ways.
Oh,
And so we
okay.
took that distance here and just kind of centered it, so you'd have the same amount of dock and boat lift space there.
For people who have their boats on the pier there, where would they drop their coolers or other equipment to get out to the pier then?
This pier?
Yes.
I don't know, although I would say I'm not quite sure where they do it now either. Because we'd have pavement a lot closer to that now, but
But then you'd almost need a break
There's
in the
actually an
fence.
asphalt path that runs right along there and goes up, but the access to it is probably more than likely coming from the beach side rather than the pier side.
So they'd have to park over in a standard parking lot and then take the pathway out to the pier?
yeah.
Yeah, once
Pretty good
you've,
hike for them then.
once you've parked your boat, once you've got your boat on the boat launch,
Yep.
you're gonna launch it. Then, once you've got it on the boat launch, then your access is generally gonna come in through the beach, which is what happens now.
Right. It's just going to be a lot longer haul for them to get out to their boats on the
Than it is now.
docks than it has been in
Yeah.
the past. Be a nice little hike for them.
Little exercise.
One thing I'd like to consider is on that west end is even if it's a small driveway off of Sandy Beach Road into the west end there, and I'd say that more so for emergency vehicles. If you've got a lot of boats stacked up, even if the fire department has to come down and put their boat in a hurry, maybe it's a small one that's just for official use only or something, it would be something to consider.
Well, emergency vehicles are generally the biggest vehicles we're gonna see running through there. And, we cut that out based on the comments to not have boats coming into that portion of the roadway. We agree with your comments, and we can look at it again. I guess we thought when we looked at it that if you need to, you can come in and loop around through the parking lot. You might have to walk somewhere across through there, but having the access to the roadway was,
Yeah, I'm just thinking about it from
an emergency.
EMS and fire is that most of and it usually happens on your busy weekends, when everybody's trying to get in and out, is if there's a medical emergency on the lake, they bring the people to the dock. If it's, and we've had boats capsize and different emergencies, if the fire department's coming down to launch their craft, their boat, they need to get in there and spin around. If you get a lot of boats stacked up, it's gonna really slow them down getting in there. We may want to consider a small lane that's for official use only, and just throwing it out there on the, thinking on the other end for
With a
safety.
gate on it
Yep.
that
We
is
could even
only
do something
open
small.
When we need it for emergency vehicles.
But then you're pushing your asphalt up again.
It'd be a small driveway at this point.
Could you do a gravel driveway? I mean, those vehicles can.
Gravel isn't any different than asphalt in the long run, as far as a.
You've
as a
already built
pavement
the base
runoff.
and everything else, and if they're doing it, it'd be a small price tag. It'd be a small strip of asphalt that you'd have to put in. I'm just looking at it is for safety and emergency vehicles, it would be very nice to have that access and
Well,
Those-
there's
I
things
think
you could do. You
conversation,
could make the
I think.
curb, say, on this corner mountable, so that to the eye, it looks like you're not supposed to drive there necessarily, but at the same time, somebody else said it earlier, like, I think Diana was saying about people just, I don't want to wait in that line, you know, if there's something there, people might
Well,
drive
we're
on
gonna
it.
have to have a gate there that's
Yeah.
only open when an emergency vehicle needs it. And the emergency vehicles would have to have the access to that gate. They would have to have the key to get that open.
Only concern I have there is people won't pay attention to that and they'll just park right in front of it.
it's like anything else, a fire hydrant or anything else that's
Exactly.
enforceable.
Yeah.
So I could answer it. So with this one, I didn't touch on that yet. We would not be doing hardly anything to the roadway. The only thing we would touch on the roadway is to cut in this driveway entrance. Everything else would stay all the same, the existing curb line, and then it kind of narrows up right here. We wouldn't touch any of this down here. So,
Yeah, there was no expectation to change any of the parking unless, there wasn't any expectation coming out of what we were doing. I mean, at some point in time, everybody makes a request, you know, someone comes in and requests the council change it. That's an option, but we didn't propose that. We made the shift and left the road alone without any changes. We had discussed emergency vehicles and being able to access that, and I think we came away with the conversation that this was the route we wanted to go out of that meeting. Now, you know, you guys get to pick.
Oh, and can't we make the area where this emergency gate is a tow-away zone? Where we just, you know,
I
we
think-
skip down and they see a vehicle there, they call Steve's and say, tow this one away. I mean, if there's signs there that say, no parking, tow-away zone, I don't have any qualms about towing it away. It's a safety issue.
Right.
And nobody should be able to
There-
just override that.
just thought a couple other things that you could entertain was, they have like kind of grass paving type systems that can support good-sized vehicles, but are also vegetated, basically.
I'm
so-
having trouble hearing you.
That they're vegetated, so they're like a grass paver system, so that you could have, say, a mountable curb painted yellow, or however you wanted to mark it for no parking, and then whatever was behind it wouldn't be super evident that you could drive on it.
Well, I'm sure we
Oh.
can, don't you think?
Yeah, well, I'm looking at this too, and now that you have the new queuing lanes in there, what is the width of each of those drive lanes? So you got two drive lanes
You're talking.
up there,
here,
yeah.
Right
What's-
here?
Yep,
I believe that was 26 feet wide, I think.
It was for two vehicles, and that's 13, yeah, so it's 26.
26. So yeah, unless you run into a problem where you have more than 3 or 4 people queuing, I would assume there's gonna be a good way to get through there, but I do agree, having some sort of an extra entrance there for emergency vehicles wouldn't be a bad idea.
And in the short term, Steve, the fire department could use this one still. There wouldn't,
Right,
But in
during the,
future,
yeah.
in future phases, that wouldn't be there anymore. And
I'm glad you brought it up, because it's something we really hadn't discussed until now. And that's an important point, you know, if you've got somebody having a heart attack or something, you gotta have that quickly. So,
So I guess the next slide I had just kind of summarizes some of these things I've been talking about and how we feel like we try to address the public's comments and concerns. We added additional boat maneuvering space. We increased the distance from the parking stalls to the launch a little bit. There's also a little bit of a corner there at the west end where people could use to kind of pull into and back into the launch. And we also have the dedicated queuing and tie-down areas provided. We reduced the impervious area versus option 1, which is true. I guess we reduced the net impervious area that we're adding. We increased the grass picnic area south of the beach. That was a concern that people had, losing that space. The western exit is eliminated, well, for public use at least at this point. We eliminated the long-term trailer parking and will remove the fence on the north side of Sandy Beach Road to ease impact on the view of the lake for the town residents. And then reduced shoreline plantings to increase boat beaching space. We also relocated the 4 volleyball courts, maintained the existing number of vehicle and trailer parking stalls, and access to southeastern Rock Lake. I put that access to southeastern Rock Lake in there because a couple of people have expressed concern about just too many boats on the lake, and should we even be doing this, or should we greatly reduce the amount of stalls available? And there's the Sandy Beach launch, then there's the Mill Pond launch, which is very constricted for boat size access to the lake, and then there's the town launch on the north side. So this is the only launch in the whole, I guess you could almost say east side of the lake and certainly south side of the lake. So I think that's important to keep in mind, it's pretty important, I think. And then we added dedicated aquatic invasive species removal stalls and devices in the queuing areas, and then the fence along the north side of the boat launch would separate beach patrons and boat launching activities.
before you leave that, when you go into this program again sometime, can you, behind relocated 4 volleyball courts further east behind there, put temporarily?
Sure.
Because I know we have people in town who volleyball is very important to them. And the overall goal is to have the volleyball court back on the beach, on the north farther, as we work through this 5-year plan. So we're not, sticking them there forever. They're there because we want to keep them so people can use them, but they will eventually move over and farther north along the edge of the lake, right? Sort of?
Well, again,
Well, if that's how we
I
do it.
can't guarantee you how it's going to go in the future,
Oh.
but that's the plan. Now,
Okay, that's what I'm saying. And I think if
I've
we
had
put-
some people tell me that the temporary location is the best location, but,
Oh, well, and we can always do that.
yeah,
if
the
that's-
debate is always, who's right and who's wrong. But I think that if it continues to move forward, then yes, they will move north, closer
it
to
would
the
still-
existing,
Yeah,
closer
right.
to the remaining one that's up in this corner here.
Right,
They'll be up by that one.
yeah. So that's why if you do tweak this, add the word temporarily in there, and everything here is temporarily, so.
And I think along those lines, it is important to note that this project very well could be a standalone project. That if, the council decides never to move forward with any of the other phases of Sandy Beach Road and only do this,
Yeah,
you're still gaining parking stalls in the parking lot, you're maintaining your existing trailer parking. In my opinion, the central part of the beach would be a little bit more friendly because you wouldn't have the boaters going in there, and so.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and then just to run through this real quick, so the option 1, the project costs were estimated at $840,000, and then the option 2/2A, they're basically the same, would be $886,000, pretty close to each other. We have already submitted the Sportfish Restoration Grant on February 1st, and then we're working now, hopefully, towards submitting a recreational boating facilities grant on June 1st, and I put the drawings and permits are required for that submission. So drawings meaning a engineering design that's close to buildable versus these kind of concept drawings, something that the DNR can accurately assess your land disturbance and impacts on the lake and what you're planning to do. And then I guess over 50% funding of the project is available, and actually each one of these programs could fund up to 50%, so theoretically you could get 100% funding, but that's very rare. Typically it's, over 50% is a not uncommon thing that these projects get funded. And then one of our projects in Prairie du Sac a few years ago got funded at an 87% level when you combine the two programs. That was very lucky. They had a very unique situation, but it's just an example that that's why we're doing this is, we're trying to
Right.
capture quite a bit of money for the city.
Right.
Let's see. And then I guess just a couple things here. I touched on being it standalone. If we did all these grant applications, 2020 would be the earliest construction. And then also a very important note, I think, that the existing launch could remain open during construction as well.
Okay.
That's it.
Wow, you were busy.
Well, we had a lot of comments to talk about, and all good stuff, because a lot of people that, witness what happens there and what the needs are a lot more than, myself, people who live right there and things like that, so.
I do like, and this is personal, I do like how you addressed the concerns that were expressed at the meetings, and a lot of them have been addressed. A lot of them have been, I think I hope everybody feels they were heard, but I think a lot have been handled. So, anyway, Dan, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Since this is our council meeting, is this is a listening area for the?
This absolutely isn't a public hearing.
Pardon me?
It's not a public hearing.
It's not a public hearing. Now, next week, Thursday, the 10th, we have an open work session, which will be similar to our last one.
Wednesday, the 10th.
Wednesday, the 10th, sorry, I was thinking Thursday. Yeah, Wednesday, the 10th, thank you.
It'll be exactly the same as the last one.
It'll be
We'll
like
sit
the
down
last
there.
one, and all of this can be discussed at that time for the,
The public is invited to comment at that point. I mean, I don't know what will be discussed. I guess that's kind of the basis of the council meeting tonight. What plan would be presented at that meeting as the council's most latest iteration of the concept?
so we need a little feedback from council members
I
here.
think that's an appropriate way to go right now.
Well, that's what the motion is for, is to kind of get that into place. We would do another meeting similar to what we had the last time, where they can come, they can comment. We've already seen some comments about, issues like turtles, archaeological issues. So we could comment on that, it's every project that we do, we have bats or frogs or turtles. We have every single project we have on the west side of Main Street is an archaeological, we have to have archaeological staff on hand. So those types of questions we can kind of work through with them and let them know that, yes, we've dealt with them, we will be going through the processes, we know what to do. To a certain extent, we're trying to get to the point where the permits can be submitted so that the DNR can actually look at it and start making the comments on how we will have to deal with it. I think we have some ideas, and we've always been able to work through the problems, but, there may be something out there that they're gonna say, hey, you need to think of something different, and we'll go back to the drawing board. But at least at that point in time, we'll be able to discuss those issues and work through them. And then on the 16th, we'll be back here again. And then at that point in time, you're gonna have to make a decision on this is it, or no, we're not doing it. So,
I just wanted to clarify something then. Item C on the agenda was the presentation, which is what he just gave us. Your presentation is finished, correct? Does that mean we're done with item C?
Yes.
Okay. That would then move us to item D, which is when we can discuss what we just saw. And the reason it's a discussion decision is because at this point, if we decide we want to say we want to do A instead of the original one, we could do that under this item.
Right.
Okay, I'm with you.
Yeah, there's,
A little puzzled on that one, so.
yeah, there's option 1, there's option 2, and there's option 1, there's option 2, and there's option 2A. And then you guys could throw out some other ideas, like Steve's already thrown the one out there. If you guys decide to add that in, then we would kind of go back and say, this is what the council has kind of said they think is the best option. We could have that debate again like we did on option 1, see what kind of changes might fall out of that one. And then we could come back to the council on the 16th and say, hey, if we're ready, we need to get it done, because we either need to get those DNR permits done, or we're going to hold off.
And we need this council motion to do that. Is that what we're saying? That we need to take an action item on this to do that? Is that what?
It gives them direction so they can prep for the meeting on the 10th.
You don't have to do anything if you don't want to.
Well-
But this gives staff direction that when we go to that public information meeting, we know what you guys have intended.
Okay. Well, then, if it's okay with everybody, should we move to item D? Okay, thank you for the presentation. Thank you for everybody who's listening to the presentation. And now we're going to move to item D, which is the council discussing what we just heard and deciding whether we want to take any decision, make any decision at this point. Okay, open item D, discussion on Sandy Beach recreational boat launch design for grant, and it may be a decision as well if we choose to do that. Okay, council members, what are your thoughts?
Well, I guess I'm ready to, I feel pretty good about what we've got for the next step, which.
The A? The A one?
Yeah, I think, and as you were talking about adding that access, seems like if we can work that, get that in, it's
I think it's a
beneficial.
necessity. My feeling is.
I would really like to see some kind of an emergency vehicle lane there, just in case we've had a boat fire down there with somebody with a gas can, by the trailer park. If you had somebody like that in one of these driveways, you've only got one in, one out off the
The
road.
restaurant could have a fire very
Yes.
easily. You're dealing with a lot of stuff that
I
burns.
think any place you have something like this, having that second emergency lane is a,
So are you,
It's a
are
big
you looking to
benefit.
have that in this phase? Because like it was said, we could, until then we have the other boat launch to use when this phase happens. Do you want to save adding that for another phase, or include?
I think if you're doing all this earthwork anyways, to
Do
put
it
that extra
same
little strip
time,
in there
yeah.
and the asphalt, that's the cheapest time to do it. That'd be the best way to do it.
And you guys are talking 2A. 2A is the option you're looking at.
Yeah. Unless you've got some other feelings.
Oh, as long as the lanes are wide enough and it makes for an orderly flow of traffic, that's good with me. We don't have to bring that traffic out onto Sandy Beach Road. It prevents families from having kids run out there and have some issues, things like that. It keeps it all on city property.
And the road may very well have sand on it, because the wind is gonna blow it on the road anyway, so it may not even look like a road, but you're gonna know there's a road there.
I think that the consensus that I'm hearing so far is option 2A. And I think that's really what Steve's looking for, is that direction. But I think that we should table this motion and possibly modify this motion and so we can take it up at the next meeting, because I think it's valuable to hear from the public input that's going to be next Wednesday.
That's what we're
What I'm-
prepping for.
Vicky, what I'm looking at is that I want to go to the public hearing with what you guys have put together. So if you pick 2A with the the emergency access, I can go there. They're looking at that. They're not making comments on that one. We'll come back to the council. If you guys decide you don't want to do anything, this isn't sending me off to apply for a grant. You got
Okay.
the 16th to look at it again and take their comments and apply it to the next one.
Well, then couldn't we just have a simple motion that says that the council is authorizing you to develop the plans for 2A
That's,
For public review specifically.
for public review?
So maybe on the current motion, 19-4-1-1, you remove section 5, which is the only statement regarding future action, the May 7th meeting and applying for the grant in the future.
Actually, I think section 2 would have to be removed as well.
Well, I suppose that's what you're doing right now.
well, they're going to do it again. It won't be at the 7th meeting, though. It'll be at the 16th. But you guys are going to be basically doing the same thing again with the next option. We're winnowing this in to a point where everyone is as comfortable as we can be when we decide to send it in for grants or to start applying for the permits that we need to be able to do the grant.
I realize that, but the language in this motion that's talking about final council approval on May 7th is kind of, looks like it's got the cart before the horse.
I feel
We
like
haven't,
that binds you.
we haven't gotten all of the public input that's supposed to take place next Wednesday, that either we can table this motion altogether, or we could modify the motion by removing sections 2 and 5.
Well, doesn't matter to me. Either one of those, are you can remove. What I want to know is, are we headed to the public meeting on the 10th with a specific set of guidelines?
2A.
Yeah, I think everybody is pretty much agreed to 2A.
2A with the emergency thing added to it.
Yep.
By then.
So you could just make a simple motion.
Okay, somebody can make a motion to that effect.
I so move.
Let's be more specific.
Well, it was a good try.
That's why
And
I
be
tried to write
sneaky.
it up. So maybe if you just move to delete the 2 sections, that would be great.
All right, I make a motion that we
Oh, wait, I need a motion for 19-4-1-1 first.
No, you don't.
Don't I?
no.
No, you don't.
Okay,
If whatever motion he makes is the motion that's on the table.
so it won't be 19-4-1-1.
It will be a motion that's made. I'm not concerned about the
All
number
right,
whatsoever.
fine, no problem.
All right, I make a motion that I move that we approve motion 19-4-1-1 minus eliminating section 2 and section 5 and making it so that we pick option 2A. Is that good enough?
So you're
Second.
amending motion 19-4-1-1, removing sections 2 and 5, and basically, the expectation here is that 2A is moving forward to public review.
Right.
Need a second.
Second.
Okay. Now, let's make sure staff has enough time to write down what we just said.
He says it's recorded.
Do we want to also modify the motion to include the emergency access?
Oh,
Yeah.
That would be a good idea, yeah.
yeah.
So was there a second on that
Yes,
motion?
Vicky seconded it, but he wants to modify and add the
Yeah,
emergency
can I make an
vehicle.
editorial?
As the maker of that motion, you can do that, that's
Yeah,
correct.
and to add that, we would like to add the western emergency access to,
Does your second stand, Vicky?
Yes.
When we add the thing about Plan 2A and the emergency, is that just going to be an additional paragraph then on the motion? Is that how that'll end up?
It'll end up pretty much totally rewritten.
Well, what I'll do is strike section 2 completely from it, strike section 5, and then I suppose adding what would be a section 6 to it that adds emergency access is probably the clearest at this point.
Fine with me.
Or section 3, you could just go with option 2A with
Yeah, I agree with
emergency
that
access.
if you add
Okay.
that.
Yeah, that
That's
would
fine.
work.
Three, let's put in
In section
2A.
3, so that's where emergency access will add.
Yeah. That's a
Very
good
good.
move. Option 2A, right in that little space there. Okay. Any other discussion on the motion that is in front of us?
Does this amended version need to get passed?
That's what the vote will be on.
Right.
That's the motion that's on the table. It's been moved and seconded to amend the current, the 19-4-1-1, as Mr. Fritsch stated. So that's what the vote will be.
So, any other discussion? Are generally okay? Okay over here? Okay over here? Okay, let's call the roll.
Ms. Schmidt?
Aye.
Mr. Fields?
Aye.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mr. Fritsch?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Okay, so next Wednesday, when we
No.
have our work session.
Still have to pass it as,
Oh, we didn't vote? Yeah, we
we
just
just
voted.
did the amendment. Do we start the
That
pass?
was the first motion, though. It was as amended. That was the only way it was presented,
Okay.
wasn't it?
It's
Okay.
done.
Okay, all right.
So next week, when we have the public meeting, we'll be functioning off of 2A, and with those changes. And so that's, everybody's on the same page? Sounds good? Okay. That's-
Was that noticed so we can all be there?
Yeah, there will
we'll
be
notice.
notice that there's a potential quorum. No city council action or other board action will be taken on that evening. But yes, you are welcome to be there. It's not a walking quorum as long as we notify it. No action will be taken.
Okay.
Okay,
I just want to note, I am having a medical procedure that day, so I may not make it.
oh, okay.
I'll try my best.
We hope you are okay and can make it, but if you can't. And what time is that meeting?
5:30 it starts, but the main presentation is at 6.
Okay, now why, okay, so when we do that, it always confuses me and everybody else. So when we say 5:30, that means people can come in at 5:30 and look at the plans. Plans will be out on the table, people will be here to answer questions, but the discussion, the meeting itself won't start till 6 o'clock.
That's normally the way we try and do it.
Well, I'm just making that really clear, because with some of these road meetings, we've had people saying, how come you haven't started? It's at 5:30. Well, that was set up like that. And so, 6 o'clock, we will start the regular discussion.
Yep.
We're all on the same page. Okay. Next Wednesday. And that moves us on, whoops, there went my computer. I hit the wrong button. Go back, okay. So that moves us from item D to item E. Discussion decision on Lake Mills Cars and Coffee application for special event. All right. We have a motion to look at. And I believe if someone wants to make a motion for the motion, then we could discuss the motion, and we can make changes if we feel we need to. So is there anybody who wants to move motion 19412?
So moved.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Now there are some concerns, and some of you had communication from public about this that we need to look at and see if we can address. And who would, table's open for discussion. Did you, who wants to?
Steve,
You had- I know you had.
I did too. Steve, you sent out an email that you had some discussion, but there weren't really any details on it.
The primary item that we discussed about changing, and it was making sure there was access from Church Street from across campus down to Lake. So we've asked them to keep the alley open So you can come down, they'll have it barricaded off, and you can get through the alley, across and down the alley to Lake Street. That was the main emergency access one. It does allow traffic to move through there if they get in there or not. Try and keep it to a minimum. Generally, on a Sunday morning, it's pretty slow anyways. There are only a couple of businesses open. We did ask the organizers to go door to door to all the businesses and talk to them. They are here tonight. If you'd like them to do a presentation, they have a pretty big visual display that they can put up, and they can let you know what they've done and what their expectations are and what their timelines are. So like one of the businesses has already got, Sportsman's has already got a big sign up in back that says "Welcome Cars and Coffee."
Right.
So those are the types of things you see. So it's kind of trying to figure out who's doing what, when, and making the best use of it as possible. Historically, I got a complaint here or there, but nothing really substantial. Construction really ramps up the problem. It's as much access for the Cars and Coffee people, but they have a special route that they bring their people in on, and they pretty much got them into a place where the people who are attending their events come in on this route, and they can show you that on the display if you allow them to do that.
Okay. Do we need to suspend the rules, or are they
Yeah,
covered?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to suspend the rules to allow them to speak.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Would you call the roll on that?
Ms. Schmidt,
Aye.
Mr. Foster,
Aye.
Mrs. Fritsch,
Aye.
Mr. Fields,
Aye.
Mr. Fritsch.
Aye.
Okay, so the motion has been made to allow our people that are already there. Look at that, I turned away and they appeared. Very good. Would you introduce yourselves and thank you for coming tonight? Okay.
Yes, my name's Randy Stenson,
And Troy Claus.
and we'd
And
be happy
you-
to answer any questions that you have, regarding traffic flow or how we route people in and out or any aspects of the event.
He mentioned you have some sort of schematic.
We have what's large to us, I don't know, we'd have to maybe carry it up there towards you guys or something if you wanted to see it, but we.
Oh, okay, just put it on that table right there.
Yeah, this is sort of a blueprint of what we use to manage the traffic and look at it from a large perspective. So as the event has grown, we've realized we have to become considerably more organized to flow the traffic in and out of the city. So we started this a couple of years ago, being able to analyze it, and currently we utilize about 24 people. So it's not, we have a lot of people on the ground at the day of the event to direct traffic in and out and to manage the parking, all the cars. There's, of course, spectators and, kids and dogs and, strollers and things like that. So we're very aware of, being controlled and having things parked correctly and just keeping it real orderly and everything. So the road construction does present, some additional challenges, and we've added some people at strategic places. So if anyone has any questions on, how we go about it, we'd be happy to answer them.
We definitely don't want one of your cars in the street where it's been ripped up. That would not be a good thing.
No, we're not going to be there, no.
No.
I know one of the comments that or a couple of the comments that I've had mainly are West Lake Street. People have had challenges getting in and out of their driveways there, or it's so tight, trying to get down. I think they park both sides of that, and it gets very narrow down there. Is that something on our end? Maybe we can restrict parking to one side, just because of the road construction. There's a lot of traffic trying to zigzag down there to get downtown also. That alley and West Lake Street are gonna be extremely busy.
Yeah, we can put out no parking on one side.
So I just know that there are some
That's
people,
gonna-
even who volunteers, different things, that they have a challenge just getting in and out of their driveways down there. people are trying to park. I think it's more of a spectator thing, people coming to visit,
Yeah, I think it is.
but that just gets so bottled up down there.
Yeah, we generally, as, the staff and the people that attend the event, either bring a car to the event and then park in the designated parking areas, or park way outside, blocks and blocks away, to allow more, parking for our guests or people that come, from town that want to come in and visit and check it out, so.
No, I've gone down there. That part of it's very organized and it's fun to attend. I've walked down there with my wife several times. It's just, I think it's more on the spectator end that the streets are so congested down there right now that, because the event is growing, that people are having a challenge with just getting in and out.
That would be parking, no parking on the north side of West Lake Street out.
I think we're gonna have to do something down there just because of the access. Even emergency vehicles, if you had to get a fire truck down there, if you got people parked that tight both sides, they're gonna get down there and they're not gonna get turned around down there.
And is this only from 8 till 11? They do clear out by 11. I've been down
Yeah,
there, and
yep.
it clears out pretty fast.
Yes, it does, yep.
So, so we're not looking at like an all-day event or anything?
No.
You're probably
Just a
going to
few
want to let
hours.
people know that they're going to have to look for some other parking locations.
Yes, yep. Yeah, we've got it's a pretty good network through Facebook and our website and everything, where, with the road construction, and when we originally had to reroute the traffic, just due to having everyone come into the 4-way stop downtown, that's been very orderly, and people kind of know how to go, and they know to go and look at that as a resource. So if we do get approval, then we'll start immediately with a campaign to let our people know, and the people that come to the event, that the traffic pattern is going to change slightly.
What's your attendance about?
Generally, we have between 200 to 400 cars, roughly. And there's probably, maybe on average, 1.5 people per car, maybe 2. And then I guess we probably have a couple hundred people from town, that come in to visit and to take a look at it and everything. So I would like to add that we did raise over $20,000 last year. It's a fundraiser, and we, the group of guys, Troy, myself, and everything, we out-of-pocket all expenses, so it's a 100% fundraiser for the American Families Children's Hospital. So it's an organization called Cars Carrying Kids.
Yeah.
Very good, thank you.
Just for everybody's knowledge, this starts the first Sunday in May and goes through the first Sunday in October. Now, there is no extended date on any of those like we used to have, so that's,
Nope.
it stays the same in
Yep.
that. So if you're at home, you can put this on your calendar so you don't sleep through it on Sunday. I've done that a couple times when I planned to go, and the next thing I knew, it was 11 o'clock. And I went, oh. So, you want to comment about what we're talking about as far as?
Yep, go ahead, Mitch.
So, basically, I've attended the event many times. I've also been down in that area, and my concern is if we shut off parking on one side of the street, it's going to force even more cars on the other side. I don't know which side of the street your complainant lives on, the north side or south side, but, if there's a parking issue, I'm not aware from previous Cars and Coffee events of calls to the police department about actual illegal activity. I know that that area generally isn't used to a large amount of parking, so any parking is a different situation for them and requires them to do a little bit more looking around. But I believe you can get a fire truck down that street. The streets are legal to park on both sides. And I think restricting that just is going to push it somewhere else, or it's going to tighten up whatever side of the street you leave open. They're going to try to jam, more cars, and you can't control what the spectators are going to do. We have this type of situation at any event that we have for the city. When we have the parade for the festival days, people are trying to get into the smallest spots possible. And I think that actually traffic will be less so than normal because people know they can't go to West Lake Street because they're stuck in there. And so I think you actually have lower traffic flow during this. And I don't see any purpose myself in restricting parking to one side or the other. If there's a resident who's having a particular problem with a particular car parked blocking their driveway, they can contact the police department. We'll come down and deal with that. We can run the license plate. I can give one of these guys a call. They can make an announcement. We can get that car moved. I think as we work as a team, that we can deal with any problems that come up.
Mick, I'll go with your guidance. I'm good with that.
Good? All right, thank you.
I think the only thing we're going to have to watch is probably just the alley traffic down there, if we keep a
So,
lane through there.
we did have a discussion about that previously. In the past, they have had a couple cars in the alley right next to the Grigas building. I asked them to not park there this year, and so in their diagram here, and it'll be hard for you to see at this distance, but the alleyway will be clear, so if any emergency vehicle would need to go up the alley, they'd be able to cross and continue up Church Street, and then they keep a lane open just for parking their own cars, so there will be lanes in any direction that an emergency vehicle would need to go.
Yeah, I guess, have you considered just closing that to all traffic other than emergency vehicles? Is that what you're kind of talking about right now?
Yeah, basically, what we talked about out in the hallway just before the meeting, you want to say something, Troy? Yeah, so we were talking about having the alleyway closed off, and then if, if the fire siren goes off or something, they'll know. And there should be something obvious in the area that can make an announcement, somebody walk down and move the barricade, whatever that takes. But, they're mindful of the contingencies. They've got 24 people working down there. I think that we should be able to manage that for those 3 hours. But, there'll be.
If it was a longer time period, like the whole day, there might be a different consideration, but that morning is really it's not a heavy traffic time for the city in general, except people going to a church. And they all know how to get to their churches now because we've had this event for years now.
Right, and the only 3 things that I see to be open during those time periods is the coin laundry, which access will still be almost exactly the same, except you wouldn't be able to use church, you'd come down. The tavern, which appears to be supporting the event already, and the restaurant. And the other thing that we had discussed is, maybe keeping a couple extra stalls open, not having the cars and coffee people there, just so that a patron who is specifically coming for breakfast or something like that and doesn't care about the cars will have a couple options back there. Because we understand that Main Street is not parkable. So I think from my discussions with them, they're willing to work very much with the vendors that work down there, talk to them about considerations. And if something goes wrong at this first one, adjust for the second one.
Yeah, this is a conditional approval. So if something, let's say it is a problem, we can come back and tell them, hey, you guys
Visit it
got to
if we-
revisit this. And really, they have 2, right? So you have your May and your June.
Yep.
Construction is going to be off of Main Street.
And then you'll be free and clear on that, which will be nice.
It'll be substantially better South Main Street, south of Veterans will still be a problem, but I don't know that that'll impact this as much as what
Not as much for
the
them,
current
no.
one is.
Okay. Appreciate you coming up and sharing your, all 3 of you, but Chief as well, that, I think that was good input.
You're welcome, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there liability insurance from the applicant that will cover this?
Yes, yep.
Good.
Yep, we
Yeah. I can,
we usually ask for that information in the application.
Okay.
last year's was good through like June 30th or something, so it'll be coming up on renewal, and when it does, I'll send you guys over a copy or bring one over, so.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Well, is there anything else that you wish to ask any of our speakers? Everybody looks happy. All right, we have a motion, we have a second, we've had discussion. Call the roll.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mr. Fritsch?
Aye.
Ms. Schmidt?
Aye.
Mr. Fields?
Aye.
Thank you.
I asked Dwayne what the width of the street was, but that was a worthless question, because it's 41 feet, 36 and a half, 36, 34.
No, here, we've got a motion. Second, Mr. Fitch.
Thank you for coming tonight. That was very helpful. Your map is cool. I don't know how you got that made, but that's pretty cool. And so let's, that takes us to item 10. Recommendations for future agendas. We already have a work session after the 16th meeting for branding.
Yep.
And that meeting is a regular 7 o'clock meeting, and then when we're done, we do the branding?
Yes, that's a reorganization meeting.
Reorganization.
And the charter generally sets our meetings at 7 o'clock. And I
Oh.
know that
Yeah.
we can modify them, but because we're going through an election, there's nobody getting elected, but normally you want to start that meeting at 7 o'clock, run the reorganization, the elections, and then we'll have the boat launch at least, and then we can skip into the study session on the other part.
I think that'll be fine.
Yep.
Okay, so anybody else have any other future agenda items that we need to look at this point? Otherwise, I think would you read item 11 for us, please?
Yes. Get my agenda here. Convene into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 19.851E, deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties and investing of public funds or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session.
Okay, I need a motion to move into closed session.
So moved.
That's the motion. Do I have a second over here?
Second.
Second, okay. Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mr. Fritsch?
Aye.
Ms. Schmidt?
Aye.
Mr. Fields?
Aye.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
And we will not be reconvening in here, so we will reconvene after our closed session, but not for TV purposes. And with that, I don't remember, do I use my gavel on that? No, we're just going to move. So, thank you for watching if you're at home or somewhere else, and we'll see you next Wednesday at 5:30 and 6 for a meeting.